Hello, everybody. How are you? Back again from the Burg, Pittsburgh. This time we're up north in Cranberry Township. We're going to do a Pittsburgh community spotlight right now. That's a video where I talk about a single community in the Pittsburgh area. We've done a few of them. And this is one of the most fascinating because, like all of the towns and boroughs or most of the towns and boroughs and neighborhoods in Pittsburgh, it's very old. It was incorporated in 1804 and settled in 1796. So Cranberry Township goes back, as does most of Pittsburgh. And you feel it. When I'm in Pittsburgh, I feel it. I say this is an old town. It feels more like an eastern town to me than a Midwestern town. But nonetheless, despite its age and its ups and downs, Pittsburgh has done a good job of rejuvenating itself and developing new economies, new technologies, new opportunities. Now, Cranberry Township is one of those. Now, you may be more familiar with Cranberry Township from the famous commercials with people standing out in cranberry fields. And that is all done within very close to where I am. I'm at one of the shopping centers in the area. But there are more than 5,000 of those cranberry fields throughout the county. And despite a pretty varied and stable economic base of different industries, cranberries remains the number one. Well, to give you an idea, Westinghouse, which is one of the bigger employers in this area, interestingly, they moved from Monroeville, which is basically on the other side of town from here, almost directly opposite. But nonetheless, they have 3,000-4,000 people over there. But in the cranberry business, there's 75,000 people managing more than 5,000 cranberry fields throughout this region. So cranberries, the people that you see in those cranberry fields are actors. And a lot of people ask me about that. And I'm not an expert. I'm just going by this dude that was at the barbecued Wild Wing place. And he was sitting next to me and telling me these stories. I said, well, I got to put this in the video. So he had a Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup 2075 t-shirt on. So he's planning ahead. So that tells me he's a local. So he tells me that those dudes that you see and girls on those commercials are actors, but they do have people that wade out into the cranberries and do different work on the products. Now there's a whole new, you've probably seen them, a whole new crop of those commercials that feature famous people standing out there. So if you haven't seen those, you will. And the cranberries, because it gets so cold in the winter, they put those blue tarps. They go down to Home Depot and they buy I guess the guy was telling me 400,000 or 500,000 of those blue tarps that you might get to throw over your where you're painting, so you don't get paint on the rest of your workshop, or whatever you use blue tarps for, perhaps over your tent trailer when you're going camping or whatever it is. Well, they basically buy out a Home Depot around here, and you can't get a blue tarp for a month. And they throw them over the cranberries so that when it gets cold and the snow comes, they're protected. Now, the Penguins have taken that to another level. The Penguins have a newer, let's say 2015-ish, new hockey facility out here where they practice and work on their, injured players get worked on, their sports medicine people, staff. And they asked if they could have some of the cranberry. So if you've seen those commercials, they're standing in basically water with cranberries. And the Penguins asked if they could have some of that cranberry water and pour it on the arena that they built, the Pittsburgh practice rink, whatever they call it. And so if you go down there, you'll see in the ice, and they froze it. So this was just an idea they had to tie into the local economy, a local community, be part of the community. And if you go down there, you'll see cranberries in the ice. It was really a smart idea. It took them a little time because some of the stems would stick up, and they had to trim those off. So they just took one of Mario Lemieux's old skates, and they just walked around and trimmed off those stems. But Cranberry Township is growing like a cranberry. It's growing like a weed. They project more than 50,000 people will be living up here by 2030. And that is a boatload. And if you've ever experienced the traffic coming out of Pittsburgh up here, you're like, who the hell? Who are all these people? Because I've primarily spent most of my time down in Mount Lebanon, that area, over to Carson Street, I should say. Maybe you're Carson. You could be Carson on Carson Street. Monroeville, then the west side, and a little bit in the northeast side of above the Monongahela, whatever it's called. The Allegheny. And so this is my first time up here, but it's boom town. It kind of reminds me of the northern, like this area right here reminds me of the northern part of Columbus, Ohio. It has that very same feel. And wider, those newer, brand new parts of town. Not like even like South Hills, which is it's funny how cities expand. So you have Mount Lebanon, right? It has a certain look to it. The streets are a certain width. The homes have a certain look. Then you go to South Hills, the streets are wider, right? The big major streets are bigger. The street lights are bigger. Everything's wider and bigger to accommodate a more modern lifestyle. And then you come up here, and everything is much wider and much bigger, right? And it's just funny. The buildings are newer. The turn signal. The cross light. What am I trying to say? The traffic lights and the crosswalks. It's all more modern and big, and just the cars are big. Everything's bigger. Cars are bigger. Trucks are bigger. But of course, everybody needs a big four-wheel drive truck, right? I wonder what percent of four-wheel drive. I wonder what size of big truck owners. What percentage of big truck owners, pickup truck, I'm talking. What percentage of them actually use the truck as a truck? I'm going to say not too much, not too many. But those that do keep this country rolling. So anyway, it's growing like a weed out here, guys. And so they project like 50,000 by 2030, and that's up from right now. There's about 4,000 people here. And then you got the snowbirds from Canada, they come down. So that's another 17,000. So the math is fuzzy, but by 2035, this is called a hockey stick growth. This is because of the sharp increase. Looks like a hockey stick. By 2035, they expect there to be 500,000 people up here. And there's already talk of moving the city of Pittsburgh's government's buildings up here. And, some people are even thinking about changing the name of the city to Cranberry. And so then you'd have the Cranberry Penguins, you'd have the Cranberry Pirates, and the Cranberry Steelers. And of course, the former NBA team that was in Pittsburgh that's now defunct as of 2007, they would have been called the Cranberry Pit Stops. So that to me doesn't have the same ring or sort of historical resonance as those other names, as the original names, but you never know. You just never know in this world. And especially when people get on social media with their campaign. Like you watch, I guarantee you there will be a Twitter account called Move Pittsburgh to Cranberry. That'll be the Twitter account and the Facebook account, and they'll start dropping all of this fake news about how Pittsburgh will, double revenues when they move up here. There's whatever fake stories or promises they can come up with, they'll post it. You watch. And then they'll point to the Penguins putting their practice facility up here. right, as a first step. That they'll allude that the Penguins did that because they ultimately plan to come up here when the city moves their government offices and changes the name of Pittsburgh to Cranberry. So it's Cranberry, Pennsylvania. Well, I mean, there are a lot of cranberry fields, and those commercials have made it famous worldwide. So I think that's what they're doing. They're chasing the clout. And you kind of have to. You kind of have to chase clout these days, because even people that say, oh, no, I'm just running a charity, I don't need to. Even more so. If you have a nonprofit and you're not out there clout chasing and getting on social media and telling your story, wow, you don't even exist. It's like you don't exist. So if you have a charity of some kind, get on social media and start talking it up. Tell success stories, tell the behind the scenes. Well, give me a call, I'll explain it all, and I'll charge you $10,000. So I think that's basically it. I don't want to inundate you with cranberry stuff. There's just so much to talk about. Maybe we'll come back and do another video. That might be it. God, there's just so much to talk about here, guys. What do they got? listen to all these places you can shop up here. Cranberry Commons, Town Center Plaza, Cranberry Shops, Cranberry Crossroads, Cranberry Mall, Streets of Cranberry. And they came for the mean streets of Cranberry. He was a young lad of innocence and of carefree lifestyle, riding his bicycle. And then he took a wrong turn onto the streets of Cranberry. Now he manages one of the world's most infamous criminal organizations. It's CRAN, C-R-A-N, Criminal Recyclers and Ne'er-do-wells. It's CRAN, the crime organization. CRAN. He was part of the evil CRAN network. C-R-A-N, Criminals Reunited at Night. So guys, we'll come back. We'll come back to talk about more about this crazy, fast-growing Cranberry Township with its 5,000 cranberry fields, its connection to Hollywood, the possible change of government offices in Pittsburgh moving to Cranberry. For one, to be closer to the cranberries. You get a lot of aficionados down there. They like cranberry juice. They like cranberries on their salad. And a lot of people in the, well, let's call it the deep state, right? The government workers, the city workers, university. Can you imagine if University of Pittsburgh moved up here to follow the city, and then Duquesne moved up here? What would they do with it? And then all those people that bought condos down there on the waterfront, they're like, hello? They would have to cut a deal. That would be in the sale paperwork of buying a property along there. They'd say, if the city moves to Cranberry, then I get my money back, or whatever. Guys, come back. There's so much more. Plus, we're going to cover more communities up here. I'm so excited about these series, these spotlights on communities around Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh neighborhoods, because so many travel shows, they go, we're at Pittsburgh, and we're at what was Three River Stadium, or we're at the Ice House. You're like, well, that's what everybody says. Whereas my travel videos take you down to the streets and the avenues, down to the alleys. We get you into the nooks and the crannies. We talk to the real people. All this information I told you about Cranberry Township, I got from the guy at the store over there. We were talking. And, I get it from the real people. Especially in Pittsburgh, that's so important, because Pittsburgh doesn't go for fake people. If a Pittsburgh person had never been to LA and they just showed up one day and started walking around, they go, oh no, this isn't going to do. These people are fake. Faker than a plastic fly. All right, guys, you get the idea. Come back for more. Oh, and this has been a Joe Ditzel parody. I'm going to work on that one.